Hi everybody, Christy Taylor here from Trust Christy. I just wanted to show you my kitty cat, Butch. He's sitting right here, he's so sweet. I don't know how long he's gonna stay here, but I'm gonna need to readjust the camera. So today I wanna talk to you about patterns. Patterns that are not part of fashion, but patterns in your life. Now, when you get to my age, you start thinking about what has my life been about? What are the things that I've done in my life that have defined who I am and maybe fulfilled some of what the purpose is in my life? So I started thinking about this, and I realized that there was a theme, a pattern of me kind of being someplace at the right time to really help someone. And I mean like life-saving help someone. So let me go over some of these things and then kind of connect the dots so that you can see what I'm doing, and then maybe you can do the same thing with your own life, and it's just kind of like helpful. All right. So let's start back when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, one of my part-time jobs was being a lifeguard. And there were a couple of guys and another girl and we decided to have a day date, and we rode bikes through a metropolitan park. And there was a little river stream that ran through this park and a little bridge. And I remember we got to this little bridge and we sat down, we parked our bikes and sat down on the bridge, kind of dangling our feet over, and we watched two little boys that were over on the river bank, which had kind of a little sandy, beachy area, but behind it was a grove of trees and picnic tables, and I could see the rest of the people there. With these two little guys were by themselves. Anyhow, we watched these two little kids go into the water, and as rivers do, they drop off really suddenly. And the next thing we knew, they were struggling, they were drowning. And we kind of went, okay, you guys somebody needs to go in there and save these kids, being lifeguards. And, all of us could have done it, but we let the guys go, and they saved two little boys, and two little boys went over and ran to their parents. And anyhow, their lives were saved. But I wasn't so instrumental in that, but it has a connection to the fact that when you are qualified to be a lifeguard, you go through the American Red Cross and you learn all the techniques. So now let's forward to several years when I am now a brand new teacher in Cincinnati. My parents had moved to Cincinnati and I was living with them. I was a young college graduate because I'd gone through the summers and actually got my degree a whole year earlier. Nevertheless, I had my first full years of teaching in 1974, and I was living at my mom and dad's, and it was 2 weeks before school began. And I was reading the Sunday newspaper, and this article caught my eye, and it was about a new method for saving choking victims. You all are aware, but back in 1974, it caught my eye. And also because they talked about the American Red Cross wasn't quite on board with this method. So being the lifeguard, that caught my eye. I read the article. And the article, of course, was all about treating a choking victim with this new method because Dr. Heimlich had believed that you needed to expel whatever was caught in the airway first before you could do any mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which is what the American Red Cross recommended to do for choking victims as well as near drowning victims. So I read this article, they had, I remember a drawing that had a demonstration of how you held your hands in order to, get the thrust underneath the, just to get it going. And there we were. So 2 weeks later, there I am in my first little full-time classroom with my 4th graders, and the morning called for a little break where the kids could use the restroom, which was right out the door and, right there in the hallway. It wasn't far at all. So I was able to man myself at the door, watch the kids at the bathroom, and also the kids back in the room who were allowed to have a little snack at the time. So I am doing this diligently, and the next thing I know, there's a little tug on my skirt, and this little one says to me, "Miss Hochberger, Dougie's turning blue." And I turn and I look at Dougie, and oh my God, he's in the classic pose. He's got his hands up to his throat. This is what a person who's choking does. So anyhow, Dougie's choking. I bound over to his desk, put my arms around him, and while he's seated in his chair, do this, out pops a big piece of round candy, smashes onto another kid's desk. And, he goes into the, gulping, and he's getting his breath, and his color's coming back, and oh my goodness. And I managed to, get him calmed down, and he was able to go to the restroom. I made sure that he was okay, and I went to the office, which was right next to the restrooms, and I just about collapsed and told the secretary what had just happened. And it was like, oh my gosh, I was so grateful that I had read that article, and that then was what allowed me to be able to save this kid from choking to death. Now, what was great too was many years later, I was listening to a radio show, and the radio show had Dr. Heimlich on it. And I called in, and I was able to talk to him and tell him about this. It was so great. I was so glad that I was able to thank him for coming up with this. And since then, I'm sure many of you have had many stories about people choking and other people saving them. But anyhow, so that was a situation that I had where I was in the right place at the right time, so anyhow, I believe I was meant to be there for that. And that's a good thing. Okay, let's see. Another thing that happened was now I've moved out of my parents' house, and I have my own apartment. It was a cool apartment, and it was 2 levels. I was on the 2nd floor, and it looked out over a courtyard where there were other apartments, and it was the summertime, and I remember having the window open, and I was sipping my morning coffee in my nightgown, and I hear this faint, "Help me, help me." And I thought, what the heck? So I go over and I look out the window, and there is this woman laying on the sidewalk, and she's bleeding. So, I said, "I'm coming." And I quickly ran down the steps, around the corner, and there she is. And I come upon her, and I look at her leg, and her calf has exploded. Now, I'm one of those people that doesn't bother when there is a crisis situation. I, for some odd reason, am cool as a cucumber. So anyhow, I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "my husband was cleaning his gun, and he left it on the dining room table, and I walked by it, and I knocked it, and it fell on the floor, and it fired, and it hit my leg." Okay, so I went in, I got some dish towels, I came out, and I tied a tourniquet on her. By that time, another resident had come outside, and we tended to her, and he called 911, and she was able to be taken away, and she ended up being okay. So another time, and in the right place at the right time to help somebody get through a bad situation. Okay, now you all know that, or maybe you don't, that I 3 years ago, took on taking care of my mom and dad. And when my dad was living with us, we had put my mom into a facility that was not far away. It was, about really 5 minutes between our house and where the facility was. And I had gone and visited my mom, and I took our dog with us because she loved that, and so did the residents. But our dog was being kind of ignored with walks. And I was on my way back from visiting one time, and it was cold, it was winter, and I decided to pull into this park that we were familiar with, and I was going to take my dog Carly for a walk. So I headed towards the back of this area, which had a pond, one of those retention ponds. And beyond the retention pond, there was a row of trees and bushes and a neighborhood on the other side. Well, there was nobody else in this park, nobody. So, which was fine. But anyhow, I'm walking along, and as I'm approaching the rounded part of this retention pond, I realize that I'm hearing children's voices. So I'm thinking, well, they must be playing in the backyards of that neighborhood on the other side of the trees, but that's not what it was. So as I came around the corner, there was this big pipe that emptied into the retention pond, and I could see these kids were like at the edge, and the retention pond was partially iced over. And these two kids start inching their way out onto the ice. Oh. So I startled them, but I yelled, "Stop, get off the ice now, get off the ice now." And they kind of turned around and they start scrambling back, and you can hear crack, 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 crack. Okay, so they get back onto the edge. And I said, "Guys," I said, "don't ever go on to ice this thin. You could have fallen in the water, drowned. Nobody would have heard you. Nobody's here but me and my dog." Anyhow, so they just thought I was some, lady, and they just scampered off, and off they went. So, saved them. Okay. All right. Anyhow, I see these patterns, and there are more, but the purpose is not to say I'm a hero. I am not a hero. I like to say that I am listening to my intuition that's telling me what to do at a certain time, that's either going to lead me to be in the right place at the right time and then be helpful to somebody else, or to be there so that their life is extended. I'm a life extender. Okay, so anyhow, that's what I wanted to share with you today, is these patterns that I'm starting to recognize in my life that are good, that are helping me to understand more about my purpose in life. And I'm meant to be here to help others, that's for sure. So anyhow, try to find the patterns in your life as well. And then maybe I'll get back to patterns in fashion at a later time. I will, because I am dying about this. I mean, I cannot wait to break free from this and be able to explore all the different fashion things that are out there and what I like to put together and have some fun with this. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and listening. And if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. And if you feel like leaving a comment, you can leave a comment as well. And stay safe and warm, and stay well. All right, take care. Bye-bye.